Hello everyone, this is Tactical Lecture and welcome to another battle replay. Today, yes, we are fielding a Skaven melee rush army with no missile units other than some Night Runners and a bunch of Plague Monks as a melee core. Thanks to viewer footage tree suggesting me to do some alternative Skaven builds, this is what we came up with. Now, this is not exactly an army build video because as an army build, this is very circumstantial, not the most effective army in combat, just fun to use once in a while. Now, for the army builds, we have a front line of Night Runners, just Vanguard in skirmish mode, trying to maybe lure out the shots from the Dark Riders and also the Scourge Runner chariots. In the front lines, we have a lot of Skaven slaves to provide some buffer for our melee core, the Plague Monks. And at the back, we have some Red Ogres and also our secret weapons, Eshin Triads. Now, as for how they affect the battle, we'll explain it during the action. For leadership, we have Throat the Unclean here with Creature Killers, Red Ogre summons, a bunch of buffs, and also Plague Priest coming in with a bunch of summons. As for the Dark Elves army, a front line of Bleak Swords. At the back, a couple Black Ark Corsairs, and that's basically it for infantry department. For skirmishing firepower, Dark Riders on one flank, Scourge Runner chariots on the other. At the back, we have Rakarth riding on top of a Manticore, as well as a couple Hydras, protecting a Sorceress of Beast. And now, without further ado, let's go straight into the battle and get the action going. As the battle begins, I was shifting the Night Runners over to this flank as I see the Scourge Runner chariots pushing forward. With the chariot status, they can certainly roll over my skirmishers. Instead, I would like to use these Night Runners to use their ninja stars, blow darts, whatever their missile is, I don't know, but they'll have to use it to shoot down these repeater crossbows. What I'm trying to do is to maybe lure out the repeater crossbows out of position and then use the crossfire to finish them off. While on this flank, these Skaven slaves will be bravely sacrificing themselves to the Scourge Runner chariots. Being one of the worst fodder, they are getting ran over and getting shot in the face by the chariot missiles. They will be worth it because the shots from the Scourge Runner chariots going into Skaven slaves are shots that are not going into my valuable monsters. Of course, Red Ogres trying to rush over maybe try to bog them down in combat, but they're a little bit too fast. The Scourge Runner chariots are just running away and now chugging in shots, anti-large as well, to the Red Ogres. And on this side, the repeater crossbow seems to be over chasing a little bit. Now getting shot in the face by the Night Runners, they're trying to overrun them in melee combat, but Night Runners are not the easiest target to kill in melee, and now being separated and focused down by the Night Runners, they're not gonna like this at all. And while in the front line, the engagements are truly underway, a Pestilent Breath actually gone down here earlier, wrecking the Bleak Swords. In return, the War Hydras use some Fire Breath to retaliate, burning the Plague Monks. And over here, Skaven slaves trying to tie down the Black Ark Corsairs and Bleak Swords are already breaking, so Plague Monks rushing into combat. And here, Dark Riders are now being pushed off, unfortunately, because they got focused down by all these Night Runners. And a Plague Monk summon gone down at the back, flanking these Black Ark Corsairs and Bleak Swords. Rakarth diving down, trying to rout off these Red Ogres. He succeeded, but at what cost? He took some damage from Throat the Unclean, now down to around 2/3 of his health, and chasing off the remaining of the Red Ogres. Back to the front line, the infantry are in an absolute slugfest. War Hydras charging into combat trying to break off these Plague Monks, but here comes our secret weapon, the Eshin Triads. They have this very convenient ability called the Weeping Blade, halving the armor of whatever unit they're facing, so War Hydra down to 30 armor, being cut up by Red Ogres and Throat the Unclean, all that anti-large damage, especially with Creature Killer coming in. Yeah, he's not liking his life right now. Same goes for this War Hydra. There's no Creature Killer here, but with his army debuff surrounded by Plague Monks and Eshin Triads, both damage dealing units, and also the supporting Black Ark Corsairs are debuffed by Weeping Blade, surrounded by Plague Monks as well, dying in droves to that anti-infantry attacks. The armor not saving them this time, and they will be going down in combat. Over here, these Bleak Swords overloaded by a horde of Night Runners, and also some Skaven slaves will be seen off by the pursuing Skavens. Now, speaking of chasing off routing units, War Hydra being chased off by Red Ogres will not be coming back, probably, as long as these Bleak Swords fail to block down the Red Ogres. Same goes for these War Hydra here. And Eshin Triads, with 49 speed, they are actually able to keep up with the War Hydra with only 46 speed base. Yes, they are not running out of the grasp of the Eshin Triads. Now Recarve trying for one desperate snipe against Fort Unclean, but a back pocket Red Ogre summon is popped. Eshin Triads rushing in, debuffing the armor of Recarve, surrounded by armor piercing monster damage. All the armor piercing coming in, Recarve is not surviving this. Also anti-large attack, remember, from Fraught as well as the Eshin Triads. He is going down, and down he goes. Scourge Runner Chariots running in trying to save their lord, but it's too little too late. Instead, they themselves are bogged down in melee combat, halving their armor by Weeping Blade, and Red Ogres beating them down. Night Runners shooting in as well, providing that missile attack morale debuff, and there goes the Dark Elves. The Skavens are having Manticore meat for dinner tonight. Now that we're at the post-battle screen, I would like to say a big thanks to Foodistory for suggesting me to do an alternate Skaven build. This was a pretty hectic experience. I've been streaming my testing on Twitch, and like 90% of those battles were defeats. Partly due to my incompetence with Skavens, like Skavens and Greenskins, my top two worst factions. But other than that, it was a pretty fun idea to test out, especially when this build works sometimes. Just nice to see that occasional Skaven infantry representation. But still, overall, just don't try to use a Skaven infantry build. Like, it doesn't work. They don't have the leadership to hold, and even if they hold, they don't have the damage to carry the game. Hence why this is only a battle replay video instead of an army build video. For this particular battle, I didn't play on stream. Instead, I play it in my own time, match up against a random opponent, in this case Necropotence, on the ladder. And yeah, now let's get into the army performances. For the Skaven army, we have the Skaven slaves here not getting any value whatsoever. Well, these guys actually earned back their worth somehow. I'm not sure why, but probably went into one of the Bleak Sword units and overload them with the help of some Night Runners. But other than that, we have the star of this game, the Eshin Triads, slaughtered these War Hydras and also going into melee against the Black Corsairs, debuffing their armor, dishing out the damage, also surrounding Recarve in the end. Their guandaos are really good. As for the Plague Monks here, not exactly doing too well here. Instead, they took a lot of damage from melee combat, so honestly, they're a pretty crap unit overall. Their damage is pretty damn low, despite being a damage dealing unit. Their attack are rather mediocre, like they do have that bonus versus infantry to maybe buff that up, but once charging into Bleak Swords and Black Corsairs when they're buffed up by Murderous Prowess, yeah, these guys just dies as they are pretty glass cannon themselves. Night Runners here not getting a lot of value here. This one actually got 100, probably charging into one of these Dark Rider units and cut them down in melee combat, and also their Ninja Stars, I suppose, dished out some pretty decent damage. As for the monsters here, this Red Ogre, probably the one surrounding the War Hydra and cut him down, preventing him from coming back, so got some really solid damage. This one got shot up by the Scourge Runner Chariots and chased off by Recarve, so not quite profitable. For the Unclean, 1100 value and a lot of regeneration left to go. Fighting against Recarve and the War Hydras is like the optimal situation for this guy. Plague Priest, 600 value only. That one Pestilent Breath really did a number on the Bleak Swords. Mostly, other than that, are used for summons, with the Plague Monk summons. As for the Dark Elves, Recarve here not getting a lot of value. The one attack he did made against Fraught the Unclean did some damage, I suppose, but other than that, he wasn't able to do too much damage. Maybe like chased off some beat up Red Ogres, diving down against Fraught the Unclean, trying to snipe him out, but I don't suppose those hits actually landed too well. Sorceress of Beast, I think she dumped some Flock of Doom on my Skaven slaves blobs and stuff, but considering that my front line is so very cheap, it doesn't really matter, honestly. Bleak Swords getting beat up pretty hard by a bunch of combinations of Plague Monks, Pestilent Breath, Red Ogres and whatnot. They just buckled. Same goes for the Blackout Corsairs. Most of their staying power comes from their high armor, and once they got hit by the Weeping Blade, they don't have any staying power at all. Down to 40 armor, even the Plague Monks can slice them up pretty damn well. Dark Riders with repeater crossbows overextended and got surrounded by Night Runners and just got focus fire, cross-fired, shot to their death. Scourge Runner Chariots not earning a lot of value. Their shots are mostly going into the Red Ogres, which are a pretty cheap monster, all things considered, only 800 gold cost. They probably would have been better to shoot at the Fraught the Unclean on his Brute Horror, but there are not that many good targets for the Scourge Runners to shoot at. They are more for an anti-large, anti-monster role. Seeing that we lack large monsters other than Fraught and the 2 Red Ogres, they are not gonna do too well this battle anyways. In the end, they tried to dive into combat to save Rakarth, though they failed, and being surrounded by Eshin Triads and also some Red Ogres, they just died a horrible death. War Hydras, they need time to regenerate, but we didn't really give them that time. With Fraught, Red Ogres, Eshin Triads surrounding him, one was quickly dispatched, the other soon followed suit due to all that Eshin Triads just slicing him up with guandaos. And that's basically it for today's video. I hope you enjoy it. If you do, don't forget to hit that like and subscribe, as I'll be regularly uploading content including battle replays like this one, wild army builds, tips and strategies for Total War Warhammer 2 online multiplayer. And if you have any comments or ideas, feel free to leave it down below in the comment sections. I'll be sure to check it out and see if I can make a video out of it. Also, feel free to drop by my Discord or send me an email if you have any replay files to share. And anyways, that's basically it for today. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Tactical Lich, signing out.